Now, affairs expert Mr. Atul Aneja is also joining us to talk more on this. Welcome to DD India, Mr. Aneja. Appreciate you giving us your precious time. First of all, tell us how important is the visit of Prime Minister Narendra Modi to Guyana, which is happening after 5 decades, 56 years to be precise. How crucial you think this visit is of PM Modi to Guyana?
Abhishek, it's an exceptionally important visit, and you see, it goes within the framework of India's pledge to engage with the global South.
Yeah.
You see, at the G20 summit, which India hosted, we had made it very clear that, in fact, the G20's orientation and India's own foreign policy orientation will be global South oriented. And now we are walking the talk. You see, we are engaging various geographies of the global South. Africa was one of them, which continues to be. And now we are adding more countries to it. And Guyana is definitely one of them. There is a strong Indian diaspora angle to it. So there's a very strong fundamental people-to-people connect with Guyana. And apart from that is that there are various new sectors which have come into the picture, which new India boasts of, and as your correspondent had said, energy sector, renewable energy, extremely important. So I think we are expanding our process of engagement with the global South, and with Guyana especially, we have very strong historic links. So it's a revival of a very strong and reinforcement of a very strong bond between India and Guyana. So I think we are moving beyond the Indian Ocean periphery. We're going into other areas now. We're going into the Pacific. And I think that's great. In fact, Prime Minister's own visit to Nigeria was towards the Atlantic. So I think the rising India story is being reflected in its expansion of engagement. And I think that makes this visit very, very historic.
Indeed, Mr. Aneja, also, I mean, India is tapping into Guyana's unique history, and like you also mentioned, nearly 40% of the nation's population is of the Indian origin.
Exactly. I mean, that brings us a very fundamental connect between the Indian mainland and some of the areas, some of the other geographies. So I think Guyana is a very, very, very clear example of that. Bhojpuri, I think, is still being spoken in those parts. There's a lot of cultural connect here, Abhishek. Those countries have evolved a unique kind of cultural tradition without losing the fundamental connect with the Indian mainland. It's a revival of a relationship in a way, and I think that gives it an X factor, the entire Indian, engagement with Guyana and with the Caribbean region as a whole.
Mr. Aneja, also, I mean, we saw DD India's Mr. Siddharth. I mean, he's there at Guyana, and he showed us how excited people are. I mean, they've been waiting for Prime Minister Narendra Modi since 3-4 hours, and I mean, the excitement is there. I mean, they just want to have a glimpse of PM Modi. And also, Prime Minister Modi, the personal rapport and the bond that he shares with, I mean, we saw with President Joe Biden, Anthony Albanese, Donald Trump too, with Arab countries coming from America, Saudi Arabia King, UAE also. He invests a lot of time in building personal equation. And do you think it creates a lot of impact? Chemistry matters and leaders matter.
Yes, both. The chemistry of it is very, very important. And this is what Prime Minister Modi is known for. It comes naturally to him, this personal connect with in fact, not only with leaders, but with all sections. You will see here that when he meets the diaspora people, the natural connection will show. And he's equally comfortable and makes that connection with the leaders in very elite circles. So this is a special quality which the Prime Minister has. I think there is a very important people-to-people orientation here, Abhishek, that, India during COVID had shown that how it became a first responder in a way to provide vaccines and medicines to countries in the global South. And if my memory goes right, Guyana was one of the beneficiaries of that initiative. So there is that, image of India as a country which has benign friendship and which goes out of your way at the time when chips are down for you. So that's something which comes in with, especially with the countries of global south. I think Guyana, that makes the relationship very special, because India was responsible in saving lives of people in these countries. So I think that makes him, that is the Prime Minister, a very popular leader. So it's not something which is a bond which is skin deep, and it shows in the way the Prime Minister is received. That it's a question of hearts and minds here, and there's a connection of hearts and minds, and personal connect and personal chemistry which you spoke about.
Mr. Aneja, also PM Modi is set to hold talks with the President of Guyana, Dr. Mohammad Irfan Ali, and address a special session of Guyana's Parliament also. How crucial is that? How big is that? I mean, he'll be addressing Guyana's Parliament.
No, it's very important, Abhishek, but it shows the way the leadership of Guyana is approaching the visit. I mean, it's a complete red carpet welcome for the Prime Minister, and it is always an honor to address all the parliamentarians, which means that the entire elite of Guyana will be present in during that session. So the engagement is very deep. It shows by the program. And Abhishek, if I may add, there is also the cricket connection between India and Guyana. And, that is a soft power element which India very strongly shares with Guyana. I mean, they produce some great cricketers, and
right. If I can name a few of the cricketers, I mean, who belong from Guyana. I mean, Lance Gibbs, Sir Clive Lloyd, the great name that comes to the mind, Shiv Narayan Chandrapal, Ramnaresh Sawan. I mean, all hail from Guyana. Carl Hooper too, former West Indies captain.
What solid names these are, Abhishek.
Yeah.
I mean, they have regaled not only the Guyanese, but the entire cricket world. Of course, Clive Lloyd and Chandrapal were probably before the T20 came into the picture.
Yeah.
But as I was growing up, I fed on Alvin Kalicher, and of course he was, I think, in Port of Spain, and Clive Lloyd when he captained the West Indian team to a memorable series in 1975. It's fantastic. So there's layers and layers of connection between India and Guyana, and it's fantastic to see our Prime Minister visiting a country after 56 years.
You think that will be mentioned by Prime Minister Narendra Modi and also President of Guyana, Muhammad Ali? Dr. Irfan Ali. I mean, that connection is there. I mean, when President Ramnath Kovind had visited Jamaica, I mean, he also mentioned about that. I think one MOU was also signed. But you think the cricket connection that both nations share, that will be mentioned when they meet each other?
I suppose I'll be very surprised if it isn't. It's such a strong connection which links people of India and the people of Guyana, and no leader, I think, is going to miss that out. But I can't read beyond that, the Prime Minister's mind. But I think it should be there. And frankly, Abhishek, you talked about an agreement being signed in Jamaica. I personally feel that we have lost out in the cricketing world with West Indies not being what it used to be. So if there can be any support from the Indian side to the West Indian revival of West Indian cricket, I think that's something we should really look at.
Yeah. And Mr. Aneja, I mean, Guyana is a rapidly growing nation following the discovery of oil and gas resources in the country. Energy security will be, you think, at the top of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's agenda when he visits Guyana. I mean, he'll be landing shortly. And this sector has emerged as a key partner of India in the Caribbean region.
Yes, Abhishek, absolutely. And India as a rising economy is always, there's a huge demand for energy of all kinds. So, oil and gas is definitely, and Guyana coming into the equation of Indian energy security would be, I think, very much in the talking points. Abhishek, we also need to diversify our procurement of energy. If you see what's happening in West Asia, North Africa, especially after the what's happened with the Palestinian issue, I mean, you can't be dependent on one region which can be grappled into geopolitical tensions. India's growth story is dependent on energy. I think it's great that we diversify our energy procurement, whether it is from Russia or whether it is from Africa or it is from the Caribbean. So that's important, the oil and gas element. But also, I think the renewable energy part is an important element as well of Indian investment taking place in renewable energy. So overall, energy would, I suppose, be a very important element of the parleys which take place when Prime Minister lands there in Guyana.
Also, I mean, India is not just looking forward to boost energy security, but is also, you think, seeking to strengthen the standing among the global South nations and also the Caribbean region?
That's very much there,
Wow.
Abhishek, because the global South focus is something which is a very India is very self-consciously going ahead with the engagement of the global South, and you see that should be, and rightly so, because there is an Indian model of development of how the economy has transitioned from here, and we are an emerging economy. $3 trillion economies knocking on the doors of a 5 trillion economy, world's third largest. It's a fascinating story for the rest of the global South, not to completely adopt but learn from the Indian model. And I think that is where the global South India equation comes into the picture, whether it is our financial inclusion when it comes to it, our advances in digital payments, for example, the entire the healthcare story, how India became the pharmacy of the world from a very low base. I think these are all there are derivatives here for the global South. So the visit is purely not bilateral, but I think it has the sense of a deeper engagement of India with the global South. And I think the CARICOM countries are also meeting all the representatives here. So we are not engaging one country alone here. We are engaging an entire region of the global South. Our focus had been a lot on Africa at one time, some of our neighboring countries, but I think we are expanding into the Caribbean as well as India's stature rises from a regional power to a provider of services to the entire globe. So it was in tune with the changing self-perception of India as it engages with the rest of the world. And we have the doctrine of the world is one family. I think that is the basic understanding with which this deeper engagement is going on. And one earth, one family. I think these are the kind of templates with which the surge in engagement of the global South has begun. And as I said, it got very visible attention during last year's G20 summit, which India had hosted.
Mr. Neja, I mean, like you said, I mean, visit to Guyana marks a significant milestone in India's foreign policy towards the Caribbean and Latin American regions. And you think this high-level diplomatic engagement underlines India's commitment to strengthening its relationship with the Caribbean?
Yes, definitely so. You see, what happens is then when you have heads of state visit, they lay the framework for a deeper engagement. Now you downstream it, and you will downstream it as you spoke. Energy would be one of the verticals. I'm sure agriculture will come into the picture. The digital economy will come into the picture. Education is like may come into the picture. So tourism may come into the picture. So there are various verticals which get defined when a head of state visit takes place. So I think this is how you set the ball rolling, and then we have this also this concept of joint commission meetings with several countries. I suppose all that will follow after the Prime Minister's visit. There's also a strategic element into it. I think that will also may not be ignored because India has now deep strategic interest just beyond the Indian Ocean in the entire Indo-Pacific region. So I think that element will also come into the framework which India would like to define. It's a deeper relationship with the Caribbean, which includes Guyana, of course.
And a visit to Guyana is part of, you think, is a broader strategy to strengthen India's presence in Latin America and the Caribbean amid rising global interest in the region?
Absolutely. And there's also, Abhishek, a special focus with countries with Indian diaspora populations. If you recall, though the diaspora population may not have been too much, but Prime Minister's visit to Papua New Guinea, and that was a very important sort of a moment where India walked the talk in its commitment to the countries of the Indo-Pacific. I think that's what's continued now. And we have moved now into another territory with which again there is diaspora element, there is a strong historical connect and cultural connect. And we move on that track far beyond our borders. It's an elaboration of India's new foreign policy. Conceptually, we were together with that, but doing something concrete in tune with a rising India is something which is novel and new.
And what do you think will be the expected outcomes of the visit? I mean, anticipated to yield concrete outcomes that will benefit both nations in the long run?
Yes, Abhishek, but it's hard to actually pin down what exactly would be the outcome. We'll have to wait for it. But one can see the broad outlines and framework within which our agreements are likely to follow. But to nail it exactly would be a little difficult right now. Perhaps if we have another conversation tomorrow, I'd be in a better position to answer that.
But I mean, you talked about soft power. I want to talk about that. I mean, we saw the visuals from Guyana. I mean, people waiting for Prime Minister Narendra Modi. I mean, when our correspondent spoke to them, I mean, they said that they just want to have a share glimpse of PM Modi. I mean, they sang Vande Mataram also when it gone to Nigeria also. I mean, there was a community event in Brazil also. I mean, people, why do you think people are so fond, not only in India, outside also, why do you think they are so fond of the Indian Prime Minister?
What the Prime Minister has been able to establish is that you belong to us, in the sense there is a connection, that we care for you. I mean, that sentiment somehow has got demonstrated, and wherever there is diaspora population, it comes alive. Second thing is, people like successful people, and Prime Minister Modi is now a world leader, and the people take pride in that and would like to get connected with such an individual, especially when he has such charisma and connect. He's like a rock star in global politics now. And we saw yesterday at the G20. I mean, some of the pictures which came where he was at the center of events. The way he engaged with world leaders, we saw it only yesterday. So it established that relationship of a rising India, and that we belong. That is the people who come to meet him. We are also part of that story. So I think people like to get connected with this narrative of a rising India from where they originate, and Prime Minister Modi become the symbol of that rise. So I think that, to my mind, explains why there is such a rousing welcome by people wherever he goes, far beyond India's borders.
When we look ahead, Mr. Aneja, I mean, a new chapter in India-Guyana relations?
Absolutely. India-Guyana relation, India-Caribbean relations. But I think we have to now, Abhishek, the challenge will be to follow it up. And, the ground would be open now.
Yeah.
Now the heavy lifting begins after that. And I think we need to pursue it and not lose focus on this. As we expand in various geographies, from Africa to Caribbean to Eurasia, right up to the Arctic. I mean, it's a huge foreign policy challenge, to be honest. Probably unprecedented, because this is the level of engagement that is now expected of India in a changing world order is enormous. I think we have to now meet the challenge because people want us to be there. And for us, it's important to be prepared to actually give concrete shape to the expectations not only of Indians but also now people overseas. And that's a huge responsibility which our bureaucracies, our foreign ministries, and Abhishek, to be honest, media people, just ordinary people who travel abroad, there's an expectation of a certain form, of a certain code of conduct and behavior from us. And I think that is the responsibility not only at the official realm but at the people to people, ordinary people's level.